fired me up. I said,
This is Appetite for Distortion.
And welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion. It is Brando, episode 235. Yes, this is the beginning of the episode. I usually end the podcast with, thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home, and hear the Michael. I don't know if that's what a microphone sounds like, but that's what I went with, Favazz. So on the heels of the last episode that we did, and I really thank you once again to the participants of that episode. I got to have more of you on, the fan, the share your experiences, as we got fan perspectives from Sandra and Patrick, a couple Canadian fans, about the 1992 Montreal riot. And perhaps I did this out of order because perhaps the most famous riots, perhaps the most infamous situation to ever happen, maybe I won't say in rock and roll, but the GunsNRoses. Maybe the Riverport riot. So today, I wanted to get in somebody who is just a great storyteller, and perhaps you've seen his documentary online on YouTube about the Riverport riot, the St. Louis riot with GunsNRoses. So I welcome in today KSHE morning show host Favazz. So thank you so much for spending some time with me today to relive a traumatic event.
Hey, Brando, it's a pleasure. And in fact, I was just on stage at Riverport doing a video thing last week, and I can look from the stage right down where I was sitting. I was sitting in about the 13th row for the Riot show. So this thing brings back a ton of memories for sure. I
mean, I said at the beginning of the last episode, obviously the word riot can mean so many different things, and I think, I don't want us to reminisce and highlight, because people did get hurt, but thankfully it wasn't anything like Altamont or anything like that. Thank goodness. But
there were some people that got hurt though.
Yeah.
I mean, there were people that got chairs thrown and hit in the head and things like that.
I know it's scary.
Yeah, it was not. Nobody died. Nobody died like Altamont.
But it's scary. So I appreciate you and the fans who want to come on to relive these moments, because I don't know. I mean, it's something for me and others to listen to it, but I think we want to be in your footsteps at that time. And I don't know, maybe be grateful that we never experienced something like that. We only read about it. So we were talking a bit off the air, and I always consider myself the radio veteran, at 37. But at least on the podcast, I've had radio people on, but usually around my wheelhouse. You, sir, I bow down. I am not worthy. As I just watched, I don't know if you watched it yet, the Wayne's World.
Why, thank you.
So you've been a part of KSHE's morning show since 1991. Is that when you started radio? If I can just get a little background about you before we talk about St. Louis.
Yeah, sure. I started at KSHE in 91. I ran the controls for the morning show at the time. And then I was working another job too. And I would go from, being done at 10 o'clock to the other job. And after a few months, it was just killing me. So I told the boss, and he took me off the morning show, but I would still be their board op if they went out and did remote broadcasts. And so gave me my own shift. And I was part-time for 4 years, and I was hired full-time in 95. I did evenings for about 3 years, which I absolutely loved. And I did afternoons all the way up until January of this year. In 98, I got hired to do, they made me do afternoons, but, I wanted to do afternoons. Sure. And so, from 98 to 2020, I did afternoons. and I loved it. And now I am the morning show host along with my partner, John Hewlett, and we also have a podcast called the KSHE Tapes,
cool.
Which I think people, if people like your podcast, they would really dig ours, because between John and I've been at KSHE for 29 years. John has been at KSHE for 44 years.
Wow.
He is also the PA announcer. He's the PA announcer for the Cardinals at Busch Stadium.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is really awesome.
And between the two of us, we have so many interviews that we have done over the years. So we're at episode 113 of our podcast, and we play a different interview each week, and we stop it and pause it and give each other shit, ask each other questions, laugh, whatever, and then the whole thing is there. So it's called the KSHE Tapes. But so I do mornings now, and back when the riot happened, July 2nd, 1991, I was hired at KSHE. I was part-time, and it was something I'll never forget.
Wow. There's a lot to unpack there, because the radio geek in me, for one, it's like, wow, this is a guy who's been in it for so long, and you paid your dues. As we, I say not to deviate too much, but everybody and their mother has a podcast now, and I'm not talking about you.
Yes, they do.
We're not talking, and I'm not talking about you and me who have, and I don't want to sound, like an elitist here, but it's like we paid our dues, and we have a podcast in addition to our radio careers. So that's why. But I know the world has changed. 2020 is different. It's just podcasting is a real thing now. But that's what my view of it was. I guess honestly, prior to doing to this podcast and seeing the reach that it has. But to hear that, you worked while doing the morning show, something that I did. You couldn't do it. You had to stay part-time. It sounds very familiar to my path. So right now I'm imagining when I have been part-time doing morning shows, honestly, and to have an opportunity to go to shows. One of the perks of waking up early and not making a lot of money in radio is going to rock and roll shows. So what were Guns N' Roses at that time in 1991 were huge, but they weren't where were they in the pantheon, I guess, at that time? Because wasn't the Riverport venue, that was also kind of new, and maybe it was...
You could almost smell it. It was so new. Okay. I think prior, that happened, their show happened July 2nd. The very first show was Steve Winwood, and that was June 14th. So that was a matter of 18 days before the Guns N' Roses show. This amphitheater, this shed opened up, which, now they're all over the place. Back at that time, I don't know if there were too many, but, we weren't used to it. That's for sure. And, that the fact that it had just opened and pretty much it didn't get destroyed, but a lot of the stuff got destroyed was the weirdest part, because here they just spent all this money to make it look pretty and brand new. And then, the Guns N' Roses show and the riot happened, and they had to shut it down for a few days to get everything back in order. So, that part was weird.
It's interesting because it's not like when I think of, and I'm being stereotypical here, when I think of St. Louis, aside from being a Guns N' Roses fan and having that association, I don't think of angry people. I was telling you off the air, I've been to St. Louis just once, many years ago on a trip with my dad, and I actually was at Busch Stadium when my former favorite Yankee became a St. Louis Cardinal, and he happened to be playing the Brewers at the time, so I happened to be in Busch Stadium, and I remember going to a restaurant later with my dad, and it was right after a Blues game, and there was all these Blues jerseys around. I'm like, look at the camaraderie. Coming from New York, it's like, as an Islander fan, I see a Ranger fan, and vice versa. We want to fight each other. It's just, everything seemed beautiful, and it's just, so when I think of...
you haven't been to a Blues Chicago Blackhawks game.
Fair enough.
That's where it gets a little rough.
Fair enough.
For sure.
So what was the mood that day going to the show? I have to imagine people were excited, right? Because it wasn't at Axl and Gene.
Totally excited.
Because it wasn't like now where people have this PTSD about him being late, even though in recent years it's been great. But you know what I mean? It's so
right.
The mood was happy.
I mean, I think I had heard of Appetite for Destruction back in '87. My nephew turned me on to it. Did it come out in '86 or '87? I don't even remember.
'87.
That record.
It took a year. It took a year to break, but it was '87.
Right. So, I had been to a ton of shows before, and so I went with my two friends, and we were super excited not only to see a top-notch band, a huge band that we loved, that just fucking rocked, Slash on guitar, and you had Izzy and Axl singing. I mean, we were really jacked for it, but at the same time, we were going to a brand new place to see a show, one that we had never been to, the Riverport Amphitheater. So I think a lot of people were excited, but the thing about St. Louis is that it's part of the Midwest. Obviously, it's a rock and roll town. And, I think that night, Axl struck a chord with, just being ignorant, and, he pissed off the rock and roll crowd. And, I don't think that he expected the response that he got from the crowd.
So correct me, who Skid Row didn't opened, or who opened that show? Because I guess if you can, I kind of want to walk with you a little bit through the night and
Sure.
the mood. So who opened?
It was Skid Row.
Right.
Yeah, it was. I interviewed Sebastian Bach for that, the video, the Riot show video, years later. And it was just funny to hear him talk about it. They were great. And I'll never forget him singing, back at the time, I don't know I guess it was still popular, but Vanilla Ice was popular.
Okay, sure.
Back in 91. And I'll never forget him singing Ice, Ice, Baby, fuck off during the show. He just sang that. And I had heard of Skid Row. I didn't know too much about them, but they blew me away. They were great. And I was like, wow, after seeing them and before Guns came out, I was like, we are at a real rock show. It was the coolest,
Did KSHE give away tickets to the show, or was the radio station?
We sold
involved?
that place out.
Okay.
We sold that place out, brother.
Okay, wow.
That is that thing, that show, that band, it was a KSHE band from the get-go. And we played everything. We have played everything. And there were 20,000 people there. We put 20,000 people there. It was a great thing. And, when I bought the tickets, I don't think I was an official employee of KSHE. I think I may have been an intern, but at the same time, once the show happened though, I was, I was an employee. And so it was just the weirdest thing to be involved at the radio station and then also have this band that was the biggest band at the time, the rock band, play. It was just the weirdest thing.
Talk about an initiation into a radio station.
Total. Oh my God. It was crazy.
How old were you at the time?
I was 26 at the time. I'm 55 now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you were a man. I was just thinking like, was he in his, late teens, early 20s, but 26 is like, okay, you can handle your own a little bit.
I had some wits about me. I had been to enough shows, that's for sure. I mean, I'd been to, I don't know where I was with my concert, but my first one was, I think I was 13 years old. So I had been going to shows for a long time. So it was, to see, to have something like that happen, even after you've been to see so many shows was weird. It was just, it was a weird event.
What was the delay between Skid Row and GNR? Was there a delay? Was there any sort of, antsiness?
I don't think there was a major delay. And I know Axl, and you touched on it here. He's known for being tardy and stuff. But I don't think at that time it was that much of a delay. Because I was working the morning show, and I had to be up. I think we started at 5 a.m. Back at that day. Yeah, tell me about it.
I know what that's like.
6 now.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't think, it was, that much of a delay. And they came out, and I think everything started to go bad around 9:30ish or so, and so that would have made it about an hour 20 in, maybe 10 o'clock. I mean, they had played a bulk of their show before things went south. So
everything was riding high. Everything was great. The set list was great. Did you sense any sort of Like, because you even in the documentary that you have online, you sit in your seat and you're not far. You say in the documentary that you're right in front of Slash. So did you see any sort
I sure was.
Unusual angst, if I could phrase it like that, from Axl? Was he complaining to people off stage? Or because it's just
yes.
Okay. So if you could take, so did you make anything of that? Was there any sort of like, okay, what's going on here? They're not just playing the songs. Like what's happening? Something weird.
It was weird. The guy that started the Riot is a KSHE listener, and his name is Stump. And his real name is Billy, and he handed Axl a business card early on in the show just to say, I think I would go into this, or Stump maybe went into this in the video that we had made, and
right.
which we have received a cease and desist, which I'll tell you about in just a second. It's not on our website anymore. But anyway, he had handed him a business card just saying, hey, welcome to St. Louis. And Axl had an attitude like, what the fuck am I going to do with this? Oh, okay, thanks. You know, it was one of those, it was like, wow, the guy's kind of a dick, you know? But the music was so good. And I'll just never forget the Godfather theme, you know, Slash doing the guitar solo for that. And we knew Appetite for Destruction front and back. I mean, we knew it for everything it was, and it was a great show. But you could tell, you know, just from that slight interaction that Axl had with Stump at the time, that he just wasn't right. You know, little did we know that it would all come to a crashing end.
Yeah, because there's a part of I can understand that, because there are, you know, people. You probably get it all the time. People asking you for tickets, being a radio guy,
sure.
or that, you know, that they want to do business with you, and you're like, okay, yeah, sure. But I'm sure Axl may have been a little bit more salty, maybe with his with that exchange. But I just don't want to acknowledge that I did. It was a request for me to get Stump on this as well, but you have him on the documentary, so there's really nothing more for him to say at this point.
Yeah. So let me. You refer to that documentary. So we made that thing, and we had it on the KSHE website. And the video of the band, you know, the homemade video that you see on there, was taken by a GunsNRoses roadie. And I got a hold of that footage that he filmed through a guy at Riverport. We used it, and we got a cease and desist. I don't know how long after we posted it on our website from the roadie, saying that he would sue. So we have it's been down, you know, our website for years. I don't think we would still put it up. I know it's on Vimeo. Is that I think that's where it lives. You know what? So people can still see it.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because I was worried, and I'll put up that link then, because I was worried after this interview that, I'm like, because this documentary has lived on YouTube at least for about 3 years. But I don't know if is it a current GNR roadie or is it an ex?
I have no idea. I don't know. And it's funny, I should ask Richard Fortis, because he's from St. Louis and I'm good friends with him, and he's been in the band for quite a long time now. I should ask him. I don't think I've ever asked him that.
You should. He's been on.
I will.
You probably get him on your show more. I had him on once, and I had to be really cautious. We spoke about his band Headtronics, not really GNR.
Yeah, well, he is very careful with what he says, and I think he has to be, because of, you know, I mean, he says Axl's a great guy, and I'm not denying, you know, that he may be a good guy, but you know, he really went to bat for Richard, and now that Slash and Duff are back in the band, he lets those guys walk in the walk and talk the talk, and you won't get a ton out of Richard when it comes to, you know, is GunsNRoses working on new stuff? Well, he might say, yeah. That's about it, you know.
Sure.
But anything other than that, he may not. But he's a great player.
Oh, absolutely, and he was a great dude, and I know how to you know, play in the game and all that. But it's just interesting, because I only ask if the roadie was current or not, because it's something about the GNR world that not many stuff lives online that is not like an official GunsNRoses release. So I've just been surprised that, because the documentary includes music. I'm like, I'm glad this is.
It does.
So
it does. It was so. Our video guy was so good. I mean, I did my thing, but the guy that put it together, his name is Jim Modulin, and he was our video guy at KSHE at the time. He's not with us anymore. And the shit that he put together was just awesome. From the footage, the home shot footage, from the roadie, from, the actual, concert, which I believe you can see online anywhere, these days. Might be on YouTube. It was just really well done.
It was.
And I think people that love the band and want to learn, or just, hungry to learn more about what happened, that video is a good thing to see, for sure.
But I want to get, and absolutely, but the purpose of this is I want to get different perspectives. And I'm sure, obviously, you've spoken about this, but I'm not, I'm trying to see if I can look under a rock if maybe there's something you experienced or you saw that you haven't yet. Because obviously, there's so many untold stories about these events. It was quite something when you shared, and let me see, I should have brought this up earlier, at least on my social media. But when you shared my status, the amount of, of your listeners that said that I was there, this is something that they've never forgotten. This is something that you've been to 1 million concerts. Do they all stick with you? No, right?
No. I don't think they all stick with me. If you tell me, I've seen such and such a band, and I go, I did? I don't remember. That one I remember. And sure, the listeners remember it, and they will still harbor ill will toward Axl to this day, even though the band played here just like 4 years ago at the Dome. Their first and only time back that they've played as GunsNRoses. And so people to this day still, they'll say, fuck Axl. It's just like, come on. I know it was his fault. Back then he was a different guy than he is now, but, a lot of time has passed by, and, it's time to get over it, and I think a lot of people have. I certainly have. And, but some people just won't give it up,
Yeah. So I guess with that, before we dive back into the show, when you play GunsNRoses on KSHE, do you get calls, people saying turn that, asshole off, or is that?
No.
Okay.
No,
good.
not anymore.
Okay.
Not anymore. Back in the day, yeah. I mean, we even had a rally underneath the Gateway Arch, and it said, I don't have the picture, and I don't know where it's at, but I think underneath the crowd had formed "Fuck Axl." They were, standing, in the F and the U and all that, and it was a thing that we organized because I think after Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 came out, doesn't he say "Fuck St. Louis" in it? I believe he does somewhere in the liner notes.
Yeah,
maybe that.
I think I have that.
Yeah.
Yes, Use Your Illusion 1 and 2's artwork featured a message in their thank you notes. Fuck you, St. Louis. That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they did something like that, and I think back in the day, my God, the feelings toward that band, from the St. Louis crowd were like, so we hate them. It's different now, certainly. But yeah, back in the day, sure.
So let's go back into the set list. So Rocket Queen is the song where everything went awry.
Yes, right? It sure was.
So I guess put us in let us look through your eyes. What do you see? How vividly do you remember that moment?
I was in the 13th row, and I was in front of Slash, so I was down there. And Rocket Queen was a song. I know it's the last song on Appetite. It was a song that I knew, but I wasn't super, super familiar with it. And it was just, they were good. They were playing it. And then, Stump, what caused that riot was a photo being taken, which is kind of funny to talk about now in 2020 because that's all you see.
Right.
And, when the show stopped, and when he jumped in, I couldn't believe it. It wasn't all that far from me. It was far enough that, I didn't get involved or anything, but it was when he jumped into the crowd and the band stopped playing. That's when I was like, holy shit. I've never experienced anything like that in my life at a show, where the band, where number one, the singer jumped into the crowd to assault pretty much a concert goer, and the band stopped. I'll just never forget that, you know.
And you knew right away that who Axl was pointing to. You knew it was your listener, Stump.
I did not know Stump at the time.
Oh, okay.
And I know him well now. I didn't even know his name.
But you knew
at the time.
But you knew what the issue was, I guess?
No, I don't even think we knew what the issue was.
Okay.
You know, because he said, you know, from the stage, hey, grab that. Hey, if you're not, then I'll do it. God damn it, or whatever.
Right.
He jumped down, and you know, I don't think at the time we knew what was going on.
Like, what is this?
We found out. Yeah.
Is this part of the show?
Afterwards.
Did you even think that at all it was part of the show for some reason? Or you were like, what?
No, did not think it was part of the show.
Okay.
So I knew it was real. And I didn't know the security guys like I know them now. You know, I was still fresh at KSHE. So, but you know, it was definitely not part of the gig. It was, you know, just him getting down there, and then you really couldn't see him hit Stump or land on top of him. You just knew he was in the crowd. And then, you know, when he got back up on stage, he took his microphone. He said, "Due to that lame ass security, I'm going home." And he, you know, I'll never forget him slamming down that microphone and making that huge noise. And you know, the rest of the band was looking around like, I guess we're done. I don't know, you know, and walked off. And it was very real at that point. That's for sure. You know.
What do you recall? And I asked this of the fans I spoke to last episode with Montreal, when it just went for you, when you were able to see, it went from just, okay, the show is over. Okay, I guess I got to go home, to something else is happening. There's violence is about to start. A riot is about to start. Was there something that, you know, did you see a fight break out, something thrown?
Yeah.
What was the first?
Yeah.
So what was the first, I guess, event that you saw that, okay, police are going to be here any moment?
Brando, I can tell you exactly what it was. When I saw a chair go flying over my head, that's when I looked at my two friends, and I knew I had to get up at 4, you know, whatever. And I said to them, I think we should leave before it gets worse. And we started to leave, you know, and that's when, you know, from what you've seen and, you know, on the video and everything, you know, people started throwing chairs. They were chairs, brand new chairs that were just bolted into the ground, were being ripped apart and thrown at the stage. Shrubberies, if you will, were being thrown, you know, brand new, you know, plants. I mean, anything that they could get their hands on, they would throw it at the stage. And when that started happening, I mean, because I knew if that was happening for whatever reason, I was like, we're going to get hurt. We're going to get hit with something. Let's get the fuck out of here. You know, so me and my two buddies, we left. I mean, we started to make our way out of the venue, and that's when it got even crazier.
Well, good on you for getting out before you got hurt. So, and then I guess, let me ask, how did the radio station handle it? Because since that was their baby, you know, it was your family that was inside, essentially. You know, how do they handle it? On the air, off the air?
Well, I'll tell you what, you know, and this sucked. The guy that was doing Midnights, Axl, called in.
Really?
And yes, and I don't think a lot of people know this, but he did call in somehow. I don't know if he got the warm line or if he called in the request line, and he talked to the guy that was on the air, and he did not roll any tape. At the time, that's what you did.
Oh, my God.
We have nothing.
That's rule number one in radio. Always roll.
Yeah. We have nothing.
Oh.
And that's when I heard, you know, from what I've heard, he, you know, explained what happened and stuff like that. And, you know, that, you know, nothing else happened with the station that I knew, you know, until I showed up for work the next morning, you know, and not only was, you know, I at the show, but also the producer for the morning show, happened to be there too. So he had his point of view. So we both told our point of views. And I think I still have that tape.
Okay.
the morning show. And so that's when we were dealing with the promoters and, I'll never forget Smash was the host of the morning show. And, he was talking to Irv Zuckerman, cause it was Irv Zuckerman and Steve Shankman. They own the Riverport Amphitheater. And I'll just never forget Smash telling him on the phone that, we put all those people in their seats and blah, 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 blah. And it was,
and you're talking about Asher Ben Ruby, right? Is that Smash?
Asher Ben Ruby. That's right, baby.
I've had him on the podcast. We broke down, that's the St. Louis connection. He was the MTV video,
yeah, that's right. He had GunsNRoses on.
When they destroyed the set. That's right, 1987. Sorry.
Yeah.
I had, in case if no one knew who Smash was, and I wanted to make sure we that GNR connection. I
love Smash, and just quickly, that next morning, the morning after the show, when, back at the time, I had not been like on KSHE on the radio. I had all these last names picked out. And, my last name is Guy, or my name is Guy Favazz. And if you say Favazz, people go, what? And so I was not about to use any part of my name. Smash called me the Mighty Favazz that morning. And he said, let's see what the Mighty Favazz has to say about the show last night. And so here I am right behind the microphone, running the controls. And I started, spieling about, what I saw and everything. And Favazz. And I'm still called Favazz to this day. And I've never used Mighty, but it was the GunsNRoses Riot and Smash that it resulted in my name, my on-air name.
Wow.
So that's kind of weird.
That's something else. Yeah, I had no idea about that.
Isn't that weird?
Because I want to make sure before I lose it, I want to thank our mutual friend, Rob Scarpelli, who connected us. And
yes. Absolutely. Good guy. I
went to Hofstra with Rob, and he's somebody who needs to be a radio guy in another life, but I know he works for KSHE in sales, but I don't know. He has that voice and storytelling ability. We go way back, but yeah, when he said like, oh, you were there and he has this documentary, he failed to mention Favazz was kind of named after that riot, or, that was one of the events that came out of it. It was you being named. So I guess that's
crazy.
That is very funny.
It is crazy.
And you got to get unless it is already, your on-air break the morning after online. Is that online?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
I guess you could look at it like that, because I told what I saw, and Carl, who was the producer at the time,
I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, like, is it online for us to listen to your first break? Like, if I can find it, I'll shoot you a copy. Okay.
I don't know if I can. I know I have it on cassette. I just, my God, after 29 years, you compile some shit in your house. So,
I can only.
I'm sure you're well aware of that.
Yeah, I am. So what was, as we kind of, I know what it's like to be a morning guy, and I'm sure you're.
Oh, I'm all right. I'm all right.
You're handling it? Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
Just being considerate. What was the reception when GunsNRoses came back in 2017, not in this lifetime? Because it's obviously a very different band. Many years later, was there, I guess, the reaction from KSHE fans in the St. Louis community?
It was not sold out, and it was at the Dome, and they were great. And Axl didn't really address it at all during the show. The only thing he said, and it was kind of funny to me, he goes, it's been a while since we've been here. And he goes, "Did you miss me?" and that was it. And the show was great. And to see Rocket Queen, and Richard had, he's got the solo in that song. It was just really cool. And I think most people, certainly people that were there, loved seeing the show, but there were people that boycotted the show because of what they had done, all those years earlier. It was just kind of stupid. Now, I will say that I took a picture with Stump at the show. I had floor seats, and he did too.
Oh, nice.
And he was pretty wasted. And I took a picture with him, and I posted it on Twitter. And it's probably the most viewed thing I've ever tweeted. I mean, people from all over the world.
I got to find that.
Because I don't remember what I said, But whatever I said, I was like, here's the guy that started it all back in 1991. It was Stump, and here he and I had taken a picture, during the show. And I was like, I asked him, I was like, does Axl know that you're here? And he's like, I don't think so. I'm kind of down there, but, I'm not, down in front like he was for the Riot show. And, Axl was just, being a good boy that night. And, but it was funny. That picture, it just blew up
right now
for me.
I'm going to share it as soon as I can find it. I don't mind having to go through your Twitter timeline and look at all the St. Louis Blues stuff. That's fine, but I gotta find it. By the way, If we were doing a Zoom, I have a Brett Hull St. Louis Blues jersey. Just want to.
Do you?
I just want to say,
love Holly.
He
was tight with KSHE. He was tight with KSHE back in the day.
That's cool. Because I'm obviously a hockey guy, and back in the day, before I really got into music, I have all this huge jersey collection, and I always thought St. Louis Blues has such a beautiful. And it's not a McGuire jersey technically, but just that era St. Louis Cardinals. I'm just trying to bond here before we wrap.
Well, I wanted to say also that I interviewed Duff and Slash together years later when Velvet Revolver came out.
Okay.
Was that 2004, I guess their first record or whatever. I sat on a couch between those two guys, and Slash had already been through town, and he had been on my show, and everybody was cool to Slash, and he knew that basically everybody here is really nice, and the people that loved GunsNRoses were nice. Duff had never been.
Okay.
It was his first time back, and it was just funny to hear him say that wherever they stayed, he said that he put a couple construction workers on the list because they recognized him because he was jogging in the morning or whatever. And he was like, man, people are so cool here. And I'll never forget, and this is on the KSHE tapes. It's on our podcast. It was one of our first episodes. Slash said something, that was just so funny to me. And he said, I think the Riot gave people the excuse to be assholes because in reality, they're not, but the Riot gave them the excuse to be, and it was just really funny.
And it's very true. It's profound. I mean, you could look at like a lot of riots that are just excuses. They can come from like, we're not going to go down this road, but if it's a political riot, and some, people are allowed to protest, but some people are just using it as an excuse to cause damage. And just that's why,
absolutely.
That's why I know the people of St. Louis are better than that riot. You were not defined by it.
Well, you mix alcohol. I mean, KSHE, typically the KSHE crowd, still to this day, they love the bar ring, whether it's at the Pageant, which is, the premier nightclub in St. Louis, or at Riverport, which is now called the Hollywood Casino Amphitheater. When it's a KSHE sponsored event, they know they're going to do well with their liquor sales, and sure enough, that night, while I wasn't privy to everything that happened with KSHE, back in the day, I mean, that was a typical rock and roll crowd that liked to party, that liked to have a good time. And, I'm sure that a lot of those people that threw shit, or caused shit, was just, they were drunk. And here's a couple other things that I forgot to add. So when we were in the parking lot leaving, the last thing I saw was one of those 40-gallon, trash cans being thrown through the window of the ticket office.
Jeez.
Okay. So, the riot continued out in the parking lot. So when we got on the highway to go back home, where we probably only lived like 15, 20 minutes away. There were so many cops going the opposite way. It was unreal. I mean, it was amazing. I've never seen anything like that. And we were just, I think I drove and we were in the car and we were just like, holy shit, and then we found out what had happened, afterwards with all the cops and everything. And it was a code 200, I think it was called back then, where any available police officer, didn't matter the municipality, you had to go. If you were available, you were there.
Wow.
So there was a mix of cops there that took care of everything. So it was just kind of crazy, man.
Well, I'm glad you survived it, and I appreciate you telling your viewpoint and your experience with me and with us today.
No problem. I love the band. I still do, and I love Chinese Democracy, and
Same.
I hope they come out with something, that's good. I don't look forward to new rock by classic rock artists so much. Like the AC/DC one. We were like, it's AC/DC.
Right.
3 chords. Come on, you can't screw that up.
Right.
And it's them. GunsNRoses. I'm looking forward to it. I have no idea when it'll be. But, the day that we have some new GunsNRoses will be a good day. So
Absolutely. And you feel confident? I mean, I'm sure, I'm not going to ask you, if you want to answer. I'm sure Richard hasn't told you off the air, like, oh, yeah, it's coming out. I know that hasn't happened. But do you get a sense? Because I feel it is going to happen. It's just a matter of when, I guess.
I think it will happen. And Richard, even off mic, is careful of what he says. And I know for a fact that they've been working on new stuff. And I think eventually, when Axl gets it together and puts it out, that's when it'll happen. You're relying on him to be the guy to organize everything and put it out there. And that's the wild card factor. Just don't know. But I think it will be. I mean, I liked, Chinese Democracy. And how long did we wait for that?
I know. I certainly remember that, that whole wait. That's when I was kind of youngish and searching the forums for the leaks and everything. But
yeah.
It's different now, and it's just something else. Because Richard, whenever he had been asked, and he is very careful, but even in his careful way,
yes.
The clickbait will pick it up and say Richard Forrest talks about new GunsNRoses music, and it's the same thing when I had Duff's wife on the show, and she flat out said, "I've heard some new GunsNRoses music," and she just wanted to say that like almost an hour into our interview, and that went viral globally. It's like, but
right,
she barely said anything,
Right, and all she said was, "It's really good."
Yeah. The mighty Favazz.
I was lucky. Hold on.
Sure.
I was really lucky. I was lucky the day that I had one of the times I had Richard in on the air with me. I played Better from Chinese Democracy because I just absolutely love that song. And here he co-wrote it with Axl, and it was just one of the luck of the it was the luck of the draw. That I played that song. And the night of the Riverport riot, Richard was in a local band called The Eyes or Pale Divine. I don't remember. He was downtown playing a gig.
I didn't know that.
When that riot happened.
Oh, wow.
Back in 1991. Yep.
Okay.
It's pretty funny to think,
That's interesting. And you mentioned, you said Richard co-wrote Better. Did you mention that? You said that?
He did. He got some songwriting credits. I don't know if it was because of the solo or what, but when Richard's birthday was not all that long ago, and I played Better that morning, and I texted him. I was like, "Hey, I'm thinking about you playing your song right now," and he got off on it. But it was Better. That's one of those songs.
Well, that's great, because now it seems like it's almost meant to be that. Richard was playing down the road from this riot of this band that he would be in and write music with all these years later. Life is funny.
That's the weirdest thing. And it was a popular local band. And I think the first time I met him, he was in the KSHE studios to promote the reunion show for Pale Divine. But of course, you got a guitarist for GunsNRoses there. What do you think I'm going to talk about? And
no.
So... and he's made some visits since, but that night he was down on what we called Laclede's Landing, not too far from the Arch, and he was playing with his band at a bar called Kennedy's, and here all these years later he would be Slash's rhythm guitar player in the band.
Right on. And when I interviewed Richard, I accidentally mispronounced saying it arc instead of arch. Because I have been inside the Arch. And he corrected me, so I felt like an idiot to Richard.
Well, he better have corrected you because he's lived here his whole life, so he knows how to say it. So.
Absolutely. Favazz, thank you so much. This was a really fun conversation. I appreciate you reliving that night with me.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Follow Favazz at KSHE Guy on Twitter. You mentioned the KSHE Tapes podcast. I saw, just looking on your website, we both had Steve Lukather on recently. Did you
just had him on?
Yeah,
had him on.
He's a funny guy. When I spoke to him, like, it was one of part of those morning radio tours. So I was like in the middle of this 2 hours.
Yeah, me too. Us too.
And maybe you were on it. I don't know. He just sounded like maybe he had I don't know, some Irish coffee that morning or something. He sounded very loosey goosey and in a very good mood.
Brando, let me tell you something. He is one of those guys that has lived a life.
Sure.
And, you know, he sounds like kind of a mush mouth in a way, and it's because of everything that he's done in his life. And, you know, the fact he remembered the KSHE pig, this T-shirt that we had back in 1978. We started the interview off, and we said we were from KSHE. He goes, I remember KSHE back in 78. You guys were like the sponsor of our first tour. You know, I remember the pig, and that's our logo still to this day is Sweetmeat. It's the Blodwyn Pig from the Blodwyn Pig album. I don't know if you remember that, but it was way back in the 70s, and it's he remembered it. So it's kind of funny reconnecting with some of these artists that remember KSHE back in the day. It's been a great life to live. To work here for sure.
Awesome. Favazz, again, thank you so much. I hope we get to do this again,
absolutely.
Just to talk radio. I really enjoy that. So get some rest and just thank you so much for your time today.
First I'm going to eat lunch and then I'm going to take a nap.
Oh, sounds good. That was a lot of fun. If you haven't yet, because it's the documentary is online, check it out. It's fun. It's a fun watch. Knowing that everything is okay now. But wow, what a scary moment. Of course, I'm saying the obvious. It's scary to be in a riot, let alone at a Guns N' Roses concert. I just put up a poll on social media. What kind of Guns N' Roses do you prefer? The prompt, on time, perfect, flawless set, or late riots? Well, needless to say, most of you are saying that you would prefer a flawless set on time, but I'm not surprised, and I feel this way to a degree. You say this from afar, like, oh, I kind of want to experience the crazy, the over-the-top Guns N' Roses, the dangerous Guns N' Roses. Looking back and fantasizing, that might be a good idea, but for those who lived it, I don't know. I don't know if they would want to relive these situations again. So we're going to do, in addition to of course, today about St. Louis and last episode about Montreal, we are going to do a Philadelphia one as well. And we'll see. I'm going to focus in. I'm going to do more episodes like this where we talk about a specific show, people that were there, whether they are, it's from a fan perspective. I think the perspective today was not just of a fan, but a radio personality, somebody who was involved with the station that put it on. I think that's even another perspective to look at, or of course a band member. I will say, I reached out to Doug Goldstein about that I'm doing these Riot episodes, and he said there is a lot of misconception out there about all the riots. Who's to blame and what happened, and maybe one day he will share his version. So thanks again for hanging out on this another edition of this Guns N' Roses themed podcast, Appetite for Distortion, where we look at life through Guns N' Rose colored glasses, 6 degrees of GNR bacon. And before I get out of here, because the only reason I have this podcast is because of all of you listening, I want to say congratulations, Mazel Tov, to Carla, follower on Twitter from Guadalajara, Mexico, because she was follower number 2,000. And I put out there, whoever is follower number 2,000, I will give you a free T-shirt, Appetite for Distortion T-shirt. So I'm sending a T-shirt to Mexico. That's the cool thing about Redbubble. So if you want to purchase a T-shirt or a sweatshirt or a coaster or whatever, Appetite for Distortion, Redbubble, they ship everywhere. I basically get, I don't get a very large percentage of this because Redbubble does everything, but that's okay. It's not about that. It's just spreading the brand of Appetite for Distortion. So if there are more giveaways I can do in the future, which there's still going to be the pinball giveaway in the future, the Guns N' Roses pinball machine giveaway. Not the machine, but a prize pack from the company Jersey Jack Pinball that did the pinball machine. So stay tuned. So follow on social media. You can win stuff. Twitter.com/the AFD show, Facebook.com/the AFD show, Instagram, Appetite for Distortion, and YouTube. Make sure you follow on YouTube. I've gotten active on that the last few months, uploading basically the episodes I've been doing in quarantine this year. And it's been very cool. Just getting the name out there, another avenue for people to find this podcast still after all these years. People finding this podcast each and every episode. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. What will be the next episode? What will be the topic? Who will be the next guest? When will you see it? Well, the words of axlrose concerning Chinese democracy. You'll see it. I don't know if soon is the word.
Thanks to the lame-ass security, I'm going home.